This is GKW. Welcome to another edition of Good Karma Wrestling. I'm Gabe Neitzel from ESPN Milwaukee. With me, as always, from ESPN in West Palm. Check him out. He is Brian Rowitz. And you can check him out, ESPN 1000 in Chicago, Jonathan Hood. Also, don't forget to check out Jay Hood Sunday mornings with Busted Open Radio. If you happen to have a SiriusXM subscription, 9 a to 12 p Eastern every Sunday. Jonathan Hood is on Busted Open. Speaking of weekends, last weekend we had a premium live event down in Perth, Australia. We saw the Elimination Chamber for WWE, their last premium live event on the road to WrestleMania. A couple of Elimination Chamber events on the men's and women's side, a couple of other matches in there as well. Simple question to start it off. Who was the MVP of the Elimination Chamber?
You know, there's a lot of answers to that question, but I'll just offer first Tiffany Stratton. We'll just start with her.
Okay.
Because that's not what we expected, guys. And that's really the essence of what we are as wrestling fans. We're looking for the unexpected. I can go chalk and give you Rhea Ripley, but I'm going to go with Tiffany Stratton because I think the three of us were impressed with her when we first saw her in the Royal Rumble. We know that toward the end of her tenure at NXT was pretty solid. And you look at the entire package, guys, bro, it's you see her and you see a Barbie doll. And you don't think much when you see her, right? Like, oh, she looks great. She's a complete package, but can she go? Yes, she can. And so I think that the takeaway from the Women's Elimination Chamber match was, boy, she looks great, but boy, she can turn on just like that. And that brings a whole different set of skills that we didn't know that she could really do on that level. And she was able to really come through, even though she was not in the finals.
Yeah, that's the thing. I had the exact same thought. I thought it was Tiffany Stratton also. And it's funny because watching it live, I left that pay-per-view saying, wow, she is a star. I want her on WrestleMania. And then when putting together notes, looking at it, I don't even remember that she was the second one eliminated in that match. I was like, whoa, she wasn't in that longer? Like, I didn't remember until literally last night putting together notes for this show. We're like, oh, that was fast. She is a star. They need to push her to the moon. The women's division is hotter than maybe it's ever been in the WWE. They need to find a spot for her because it is damn impressive what she did this past weekend.
Well, when it became Tiffy time, again, she was the first one to come in after you had Naomi and Becky Lynch. She saved the match. Like, for whatever reason, something was off. I don't know what it was with Naomi and Becky. Like, just the timing was off. It just didn't really seem to get going. And then Tiffany came in and everything kind of fell back into place. So certainly for the women's, I would say she, yes, absolutely an MVP. I don't know where her place is for this WrestleMania. I don't know if she has a place in this WrestleMania unless she finds herself a tag team partner, which to me would be pointless. And they get something going with her in the tag team because we already have our championship matches. And
Right.
Usually outside of those championship matches, there isn't much of a showcase for the women unless we get something for the women's tag team. And so I don't know unless we do some sort of equivalent of the Andre Battle Royal, or if they try to do something where they can do a number one contender match. I don't know, but it just would not seem to me that she's got a spot on this WrestleMania card.
Can I offer you Tiffany Stratton versus Naomi?
Sure. Because it's
that pre-show, night one or night two?
You got 2 full nights of 18 hours of wrestling. You can find a spot for more women's matches, especially the way they are right now.
Yeah.
Well, look, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just telling you the way it's going to play out.
I know.
Yeah. But Gabe, I guess to Brois's point, you know, if you're trying to build on something with Tiffany Stratton, then here you are. You take on a veteran like Naomi. I'm not saying that Naomi is someone that you push over, but I mean, you could just tell that Tiffany Stratton is on her way in a great way. I would say my second choice would be Rhea Ripley. We knew that it's her country. She's in Perth, Australia. She's in the main event against Nia Jax. Guys, let me just tell you, that is the best Nia match Jax I've ever seen.
100%. 100%.
And give Rhea Ripley credit, but give Nia Jax credit as well. It wasn't just because they had time. It's because the story was built and Nia Jax was built as a powerhouse. Could it be that she could be able to win against Rhea Ripley? It had that Hogan Bundy effect from like WrestleMania 2, right? Big opponent, and here's Rhea Ripley, kind of definitely a babyface in her own home country, and she's trying to fight from underneath against Nia Jax. That was a hell of a main event, but it said more for Nia Jax moving forward as a heel as much as it was for Rhea Ripley winning that match and being in the main event.
Yeah, Nia Jax deserves so much credit for the way she has improved. Like, she's one of the people that when she got cut, everyone's like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Like, you know, she's only there because of Dwayne. It's the only reason she's there. She has improved so much and is so much better in the ring and just watchable and entertaining. And her as this dominant heel, I didn't know she had this side. And maybe it's just us wanting that instant, like, oh, we got to see something. It is impressive to where you can sit back and say Nia Jax main event in a pay-per-view, and it made sense.
Yeah, and more than just because they were in, I mean, tip of the cap to WWE for finally figuring it out. Hey, when you're in that person's home country and they're a big attraction, put them in the main event. Like, it's not that hard to figure out, where they haven't always done that in the past. But yeah, she was fantastic. Tip of the cap to her. I mean, I had also Rhea as my number 2, but my MVP of Elimination Chamber was Logan Paul. Like, okay. Because, I mean, Logan, he delivered in the match, you know, and did like him selling the RKO was fantastic. Yep. Like, he's got, and the camera work on that, he's got the brass knucks, he's got his fist raised in the air, he's ready to go, and all of a sudden, RKO out of nowhere, right? And the way he sold that, he's just laying there, he might as well have been dead, right? Like, he was not moving, he was eating the pin, but then he comes back and then, you know, is able to knock out Randy Orton. But also, the Sharpie skill inside the pod was tremendous. Like, him being able to draw the devil horns and get in there. Kevin sucks, but he's writing it backwards so the camera actually picks it up. Like, this guy just gets it. We talk about it every time we get any sort of extended action, extended time of Logan Paul. This is a guy who gets it. He gets professional wrestling. He understands the assignment, and every time he steps into that ring, he ends up delivering. So Logan Paul, to me, was my MVP of the Elimination Chamber.
And also, you need to check out, you mentioned the writing in the pod. That's something we didn't see until social media. Also going around, WWE tweeted out today, he's laying on the outside after that RKO, selling a back injury. He's like, I can't move my back. Like, I can't move. And then he pops up to cost Orton. But, like, that just goes to show what an asshole he is, like, what a heel he is. Like, it is perfect. He is so damn good at this.
And this sets up what I think should be a match, and that's Randy Orton against Logan Paul.
Yep.
That sets up that match. And by the way, guys, I'll call it now. If that's a match setting up for WrestleMania, that could steal one of the nights.
Yep.
It could be that silky smooth between the two. We say this all the time. And I know that the old heads, you know, those that were in wrestling for years and years and years, they are pulling their hair out. How can Logan Paul be this good now? Right. How is this happening, right? But he is that good. And so if you get that against Randy Orton, Logan Paul against Orton, that could be a really, really good match at WrestleMania.
No, it steals the show. Oh, like it did both nights. Like, if they end up doing it, and ends up stealing the show. Like, both nights. I
think Cody would like to have a word.
I mean, Cody would like to have a word with a lot of people, including The Rock. Like, just go ahead, have your word. Like, Cody's not going to deliver. We know whatever that match is going to be. That's not going to be a match that's stealing the show. That's going to be an overbooked mess. Like, that's just the way Bloodline matches are. I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing, but that's just the way every Bloodline match ends up working. And especially when you get more and more people involved, assuming that Cody continues to build up his team outside of just Seth Rollins, who was inexplicably absent on Monday, despite saying that he was always going to have Cody's back. And then he just watched Cody take out 3 police officers for some reason. I'm not quite sure what that was all about, but I digress.
I'll hold you to that, by the way. That I'm suggesting that match, and you're saying that between night 1 and night 2, that would be the biggest thing we see at WrestleMania. Okay, I'll be.
No, I'm not saying it's the biggest thing. I'm saying it's stealing the show. I'm saying it's the best. Like, when I think of stealing the show, I think of the best match. That's usually like a mid-card match. Like, I mean, so. Like, one of the things that I think of, and Randy Orton's probably done this almost more than anybody when he's not been in the main events, but I think of him versus Seth Rollins at WrestleMania when he did the RKO and Seth goes for the stomp. He does the RKO off that when Seth ended up cashing in. I think of him and CM Punk, which was like the only good match of WrestleMania 27. Like, Randy Orton has a propensity to actually go in, not main event, and come away with the best match of WrestleMania. It's not the biggest thing. It's not the biggest story, but it's going to be the best match of WrestleMania.
Okay, we'll see about that. I think it should be. I think it could be very solid. I think the women will also have something to say about that. And by the way, that is really the essence of WrestleMania. I mean, it's your platform, and under Triple H, you got plenty of time. They'll have their best 7 matches, for 2 nights, and they'll go on from there. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Any other nominations for the Elimination Chamber MVP? Anybody else that really impressed you?
Match-wise, I have to mention, like, the tag team title match was entertaining. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know if it just went in with low expectations, but Judgment Day versus Butch or Pete Dunne, whatever you want to call him, and Tyler Bate, like, I thought that match delivered, which was unexpected from that night.
Yeah, part of the issue is you don't know what to call him, right? Like, there's still some confusion over what we're calling him at this point. But yes.
The problem is the name of that team, New Cats Republic, because that just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? Holy shit. Unless, Gabe, the logo for them is a fish with a hook in his mouth.
Oh,
okay.
That's the only way that works. As you and I, as Midwesterners, I think that we can get into the fish with the hook in his mouth.
Oh, yeah.
For New Cats Republic.
Can you then add Bobby Fish to that? That works out nicely.
Where's the lie? Hello.
Anyone home?
And I guess one other little thing is that we actually got news and something interesting out of the Grayson Waller effect for once. I mean, Cody said, "Hey, Rock, anytime." I didn't think there was going to be much out of there, and then you got that from Cody saying, "I'm ready to take on The Rock," and then Seth saying that he's going to be medically cleared. So you got something out of that segment, which I didn't think was going to be much of anything. Pretty cool.
Well, but then he turned around on Monday and said, maybe I'll be medically cleared, maybe I won't, in his promo with Drew McIntyre.
Yeah.
So
right.
Who knows?
Who knows? They know at this point. Like, do they know if he's cleared?
Well, again, I guess the thing you point to with the promo is he hinted at being cleared soon during the Grayson Waller effect. But again, the whole thing was filled with ambiguity because when is The Rock? We're going to put Rock on SmackDown and he's going to wrestle a match on SmackDown against Cody Rhodes. Is that kind of the thought that we're going to have those two, or is it going to be after WrestleMania? Because you can throw out the challenge to The Rock, and I know he's going to respond tomorrow night on SmackDown, and The Rock is going to be around for a few weeks. But like, what are we going to do?
On X, you can watch our shows on a lot of platforms for Good Karma brands. Jimmy says, "I bought a Batman NFT of Jake Paul. Let's go, Rock. Do you smell me, son?" I don't think that's how Rock says it. I don't think do you smell me, son. I don't think that's what The Rock says, but I understand the point, sir. Do you smell me, son?
New Age Rock.
Yeah, right. That's pretty good.
Don't think that was one of the catchphrases he trademarked, recently here. But I digress. We'll get to that in a little bit. Still, plenty of other things going on in the world of professional wrestling. So many great things to get to. We'll get to it right now in something we call the 3 Counts. The other top 3 stories in the world of pro wrestling. Brian, what do we got at number 1?
We have ourselves another pay-per-view this weekend, Sunday night from Greensboro. It is AEW Revolution. 9 announced matches so far. 6 of them are title matches. So we like to go this route. How many title changes do we see at AEW Revolution?
I think we only see 1.
Okay.
I think it's the tag match.
So if you want from Bet Online, the tag match, Sting and Darby, and then Orange Cassidy, those are the only champions that are underdogs in their matches.
I mean, I guess I'm not ready for Orange Cassidy to lose to the Undisputed Kingdom. I'm not into the Undisputed Kingdom. I'm all the way out.
Yeah, that's fair. The title matches, by the way. So you have the tag title, Sting and Darby defending against the Young Bucks. Samoa Joe defends the world title against Hangman and Swerve. Cassidy defends the international title against Roderick Strong. Toni Storm defends the women's title against Deonna Purrazzo. The Continental Crown is on the line. Eddie Kingston versus Bryan Danielson. And Christian defends the TNT title against Daniel Garcia.
See, I was going Danielson in that spot, but then we saw Dynamite from Huntsville, Alabama, and that Eddie Kingston ate the pin in that 6-man. I'm like, well, wait a minute now. Like, Danielson's going to be retiring soon. That's going to be a good match. Does Danielson have to take the fall and shake the hand of Eddie Kingston? What is that? Like, I don't.
That's supposed to elevate Eddie. No.
And then again, we ended Dynamite last night with Bryan Danielson kicking, Eddie Kingston's hero between the legs, So that would lead me to believe that Bryan Danielson's going to get his comeuppance and Eddie Kingston's going to beat him on Sunday night.
See, that was my best bet, Gabe. But then, Brian, I look at this and it's kind of like, okay. I mean, if Roderick Strong beats Orange Cassidy, that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world because someone needs a push here in AEW. We just talked about this. Somebody needs something. I like Strong and Taven and Bennett together, but without a championship or being serious in the title picture, then it's just another faction, which is a million of those in AEW.
Right.
So, by the way, if OC loses, no shade off OC, he's still giving you bangers with or without the championship. He's still apparently highly rated because he gets a lot of the top of the hour matches or he gets long matches. So Roderick Strong with the international championship it'd be fine for me.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think that one, you had the title change. I think the tag titles also, like we've talked about, where Sting goes out on his back. The other one I was probably going to go, Gabe, I think Joe drops the title. I think this is Swerve's night. Like, Swerve is so hot right now, and they've missed the boat so many times on so many wrestlers when they are so hot. It's like, well, let's take a few weeks off. Put the belt on Swerve, and let's go. Let's ride that train right now.
Not a chance.
No.
Not a chance. No.
That is Swerve's chance.
Hangman's eating the pin from Joe. Like, what are we even doing here? No, he's eating the pin. He's eating the pin from Joe. That's the way this thing's ending. That's the way you protect Swerve. He can keep going, and him and Hangman can do
going
their fight
where? If he's not going to win, where is he going? We got Wembley. It's Swerve and it's Ospreay for the title. Send me on that path right now.
Ooh, that sounds good to me. Oh, that's rich. I like that.
Yes.
I got no problem with that. But okay, just so on the surface, the three of us, and have we brought this up as a topic of whether or not Samoa Joe has done anything for you as champion? I mean, transitional champ Samoa Joe. Don't like that.
Right.
But then again, what about the banger matches? Like, I didn't expect to see Samoa Joe every week in the ring as heavyweight champion. Looks good in the suit. Top 10 out of 10 for a promo. Does a lot of talking, though. All right, not a lot of action, a lot of talking. And so I would imagine that Joe finds a way to survive this, but I like to see a little bit more in ring from Samoa Joe, too. If he gets out of this, again, great promo, but let's see a little bit more action against this large roster AEW has to offer.
Has the AEW championship weighed down just about everybody who's had it?
It's starting to feel like that. Like, I had to look it up because I didn't remember. It's been 2 months as champion. He's been in the ring wrestling twice since then. The Hook main event and that 6-man, what was that, last week? Yeah. And that's it. Those are the only matches he's wrestled in 2 months.
Well, again, I mean, he's a guy with, and I love Samoa Joe. I was rooting for Samoa Joe to be champ. I was expecting more out of this. I was expecting more out of the MJF run. I was expecting more out of the Hangman run. I was expecting more out of the Omega run. I was expecting more out of the CM Punk run. Now, like, granted, the CM Punk stuff was, a lot of that's injury related, but like, it just seems like ever since they've kind of turned the page off the early champs, Moxley, Jericho, etc., like, it just seems like it's kind of weighted down. I'm like, okay, I'm waiting for something. It just hasn't popped and clicked. And when we talk about the growth of AEW, like, that's a big reason. Sure. Like, whoever becomes champion, we get excited for. And I mean, look, if they put it on Swerve on Sunday night, like, nobody's going to complain about that. He's clearly super over. And everywhere he goes, he yells, "Whose house?" Everybody jumps out of their chair to yell at Swerve's house. But, like, to me, then if the ultimate plan is Swerve, Ospreay, Wembley, yeah, that's a banger. But it's just going to drag ass until we get there. Right. Like, it just seems like that championship, for whatever reason, just they cannot figure out a way to get a champion hot. They can get the chase for the championship hot. They've done that a couple of times, but they cannot actually heat up and keep hot the actual championship and the top thing in the promotion.
See, if AEW is trying to slow play it like WWE does, there's a big difference between Roman Reigns and Samoa Joe. There's a big difference between the two because with Roman, guys, it's a story built around it. It's the bloodline. And all these different tentacles around the bloodline where you do see Roman. Yeah, he's not wrestling every week on Raw and SmackDown, but every other week you see him in a promo or you see him on social media. With Joe, not visible enough for me as heavyweight champion. Just not visible. I mean, coming down to the ring to do commentary for one match, you see him every now and then. You mentioned he's only been in the ring twice since he's been champion. Look, I'm not looking for like this workhorse champion like Orange Cassidy, but he's the heavyweight champion, damn it. I mean, he's supposed to be the hood ornament of your organization. And actually, honest to God, it's more Orange Cassidy, more of that in that role than Samoa Joe.
Well, I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think I just figured it out. Whoever they put the AEW championship on, and I think they have this problem as well with the AEW Women's Championship, like, you don't see him enough. Like, I know Toni Storm's the champion right now, but like in past women's champions, you just don't see him enough. They're not on TV. It was the same thing with MJF. Like, MJF wasn't a consistent presence really until he did the best friends angle with Adam Cole, which then became a not great angle with the Devil. But like, MJF was just missing from my television. You need to have some sort of constant presence. And whether it's been a good presence or not, with Roman Reigns, he's at least had representation. So you're always reminded of, hey, these are the champion's minions. Roman's still the champ on SmackDown. Like, even when he goes on his hiatus, like, there's still that presence. Sometimes it's been good, sometimes it hasn't been good. But there'll be times where you're like, oh yeah, that's right, Samoa Joe's champ. Oh yeah, I guess, Hikaru Shida's the women's champ. Yeah. There's just there's not enough presence from those top two champions from AEW.
Could it be as simple as just having to do with their pay-per-view schedule? Like, when you have the 2 to 3 months, and that might be changing. Tony said we might have 9 to 10 a year now, where they don't want to have, a match before the pay-per-view. So maybe that is as simple as that. Like, they're trying to build towards March, so therefore they're not going to give them every week. Like, we got the Hook thing, which we all agreed was awesome for both those guys, but maybe it's as simple as that.
I had to go back to back in the day with this, guys, because with Hogan and Flair, I'll use those guys because those were the champions back then. I mean, it wasn't a regular pay-per-view schedule for Hogan back then, but Hogan was always involved in something, right?
Right.
There he's in a Piper's Pit, and there he is in an interview, and there he was. And he may not have wrestled every week, but you did see him. At least he was visible. You knew who the champion was, right? But really the TV was built around the contenders for Hogan's championship. Ric Flair, every week, suit, heavyweight championship around his waist or on his shoulder. And Flair would talk it and just like, hey, man, I'm wrestling. I'm the champion. You got to come beat me. Let's take a look at all the challengers. So in that same vein, even though Samoa Joe or Roman Reigns aren't wrestling every week, you got to be visible. You got to keep reminding the audience. And this is why WWE does this so well more than anybody else. Gabe, you got to remind the audience, this is the man. The reason why you watch is not just because of wrestling and because of the great matches. It's because everyone wants that. The heavyweight championship. The whole centerpiece is around the heavyweight championship. And if you don't see the heavyweight champion, people will tune in and be like, hey, who's the champion? I never see him on TV.
And maybe that pay-per-view schedule is part of the issue. I think that's a good point, Brian, because I think after Joe won it at the end of December, like I would say January felt like a pretty good month for Samoa Joe. He was present. Like it seemed like the challengers were stacking up. Like, oh, Joe, maybe Joe goes up against Wardlow. Maybe it's Swerve. Maybe it's Hangman. Hook comes out of nowhere. And these people were coming out of the woodwork to be like, oh, but then they settled in at the end of January. Okay, so now it's going to be Swerve and Hangman. So now we've kind of had this month knowing that those were kind of going to be the two or one of the two or whatever. And Joe's almost taken a back seat to the Fight Forever rivalry that Hangman Adam Page and Swerve have kind of picked up. So over the last month, we just haven't gotten enough Samoa Joe.
Right, that's the thing. Like he's a forgotten man in this three-way. Like we're more into Swerve and Hangman in that story.
That's fair. But hey, we go back to this again. You've got TV.
Right.
I mean, you got 5 hours.
You got plenty of time to put Joe on once a month, at the very least once a month or a couple of times a month. Say, for instance, he comes to ROH. Hey, I'm not going to get that Honor Club. Oh, Samoa Joe's taking on who? Maybe I'll just consider it for once. Hey, he's going to be on Dynamite. Hey, listen, they have so many people that Joe could take on to build Joe up as a wrestler. Again, he doesn't have to be out there like Orange Cassidy every week and be a workhorse. But if you're not on pay-per-view, Brian, you still have platforms to go on. Hey,
right.
you think Rampage could use a boost?
Right. And that's the thing. Like, just him with a mic in his hand is okay. Like, just give him a mic and let him go. Like, we know what he can do on the mic also. Like, let that happen. And it's weird seeing some of the comments right now of people saying, like, the Joe issue. Fletch No Sports, Samoa Joe is the best AEW can do as their champ. Have to change titles. Dan on YouTube saying Joe is so washed, can't believe he's the best AEW has to offer as champ. Like,
The guy was semi-retired because he had injuries. Right. Like, I mean, Joe can still go. Like, if you think Samoa Joe is washed as a wrestler, then you haven't watched the product.
Right.
Like, you just,
but that's
you haven't seen him
watching
in the
AEW.
ring.
You don't have a reason to know that Joe is what Joe is. What we know Joe can do, they haven't shown him.
Or if you haven't watched AEW, last time you saw him, he was in a poncho at WrestleMania as a commentator.
Which was mentioned last night.
Yes. Which was a hell of a line, by the way.
Yes.
It's a great line.
But
great line.
But again, if you haven't watched AEW, you say, oh, Joe's washed. It's because Vince didn't want to use Samoa Joe because Vince is a body guy. And he's like, I can never put that guy on my TV. Let him talk. He was healthy. They wouldn't utilize him. But Triple H now, if Samoa Joe's in WWE, you would see Samoa Joe against Bronson Reed. You'd see somehow Joe would be involved in the bloodline. Somehow, some way.
Well, we saw that. I don't know if Hunter convinced him, but that was when Joe was on commentary and he was healthy and they were just using him for commentary. And then he left for a month and then he came back. He went to NXT because Hunter was like, hell yeah, let me use this guy. So to that point, yes, Hunter would 100% use Samoa Joe in some form or fashion on WWE.
Joe in a Triple H WWE, I wouldn't rule out him versus Roman main eventing a show and Joe potentially winning. Remember Vince fired Joe and Hunter's like, no, can we rehire him? He rehired him. Literally it was in a few months, hey, I'm going to go sign this guy. Just behind the old man's back. That's what he thought of him. And I just don't get where the dynamic is right now. And I guess to your guys' point, I think he drops it Sunday. Him winning adds to him, makes him a bigger deal if, yes, he's pinning Hangman. But then what's next for Swerve? Swerve can't stay hot and just sort of be on the outside doing whatever. What's next for him if he's not winning the title Sunday? Do we do one-on-one and then he beats Joe there? And those two have a feud?
Yes, because I don't know. I forgot what the next show is after Revolution.
Yeah, I never remember either.
Double or Nothing is what's on the schedule, which is always
there might be an April pay-per-view. I believe Dynasty was something that was trademarked because then MJF's going to come back at some point also.
AEW Dynasty, yeah.
So
and Dan here's where Dan from YouTube is missing the point. He says the point is that Joe's not going to get AEW ratings. No one is going to tune in to see a 44-year-old Joe. But they do turn in to see almost 50-year-old AJ Styles. Okay,
right.
So this whole thing,
Orton, Roman, Cena, those guys are old.
So first of all, the age doesn't matter. One and two, it's not about one wrestler getting ratings. It's not. In AEW, it's about a whole bunch of different wrestlers getting ratings. And by the way, as far as ratings is concerned, why does that matter to just the individual wrestling fan? Do you like the product or not? Unless you're in the front office of AEW, why would you care about their ratings? Again, you probably tune into the wrong show and when you talk about ratings, because it's about what we like as wrestling fans. Not it's not popular, I don't think I'm going to watch. That's not this show.
Right.
No. Yeah. So I think, man, I would also, in terms of Revolution, you could talk me into and wouldn't have to talk me very hard into Deonna Purrazzo beating Toni Storm.
I agree.
I'd be into that. And not that I think Tony's thing has run its course, but I think Tony can do her thing and doesn't need the championship. And this women's division has once big business happens in the middle of March and Mercedes Moné is here.
What?
This women's division, we were just talking about the WWE women's division. This division also has an opportunity to pop. And by taking the belt off of Toni Storm, it allows you, to me, okay, Toni's a big enough star. You can tell stories around her thing, keep giving her these little vignettes and keep her relevant. And then with Deonna as the champion, okay, we can tell a different story over here. I think you can start branching off of this and having different women's stories within their division.
Reportedly, Mercedes is coming back. It just might have been a coincidence. There are $2 when they spelled Boston. The other one I can be talked into, Garcia. There's so much of is he going to do it? Is he going to do it? Could they put a title on him and just say all right, he finally wins a big one?
So that would be Edge coming back and being a part of that, and costing Christian the match, right?
Yes.
Who's that?
Oh, I'm sorry, Adam Copeland. The rated R superstar. Yes. I'll just start calling him that. How about that? That translates to every promotion.
Isn't that something, Gabe, that he was able to hold on to that? Like, he held on to that trademark. It's like, wait a minute. How'd you get that trademark? Rated R Superstar and the music. Huh. Good.
Well, so apparently he's like really good friends with now I'm blanking on the name of the band, because they still have that band. They do the entrance for WWE over for Judgment Day. Like that's Alter Bridge. Is that what it is?
That's it. Yep.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
So that's it. I could be talked into Garcia, and like you do that route, and then you could still do Copeland and Christian and do their own thing. Like putting a belt on him wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. So
you know what? I like this conversation because a lot of different possibilities. I don't know what they consider their WrestleMania. I guess it's double, or it's all out or all in.
Well,
I guess it's got to be all in. I think it used to be
Wembley,
all out.
whatever
like,
Wembley is.
Yeah, all out in Chicago to me used to be their WrestleMania. That's when a lot of big things seem to happen. But if they're going to do Wembley every year, it's their stadium show, right? Like All In is now their WrestleMania, and it's also now the week before All Out, which kind of gets forgotten. So yes, All In is their new WrestleMania.
Yeah. So I guess whatever they consider this should be yet another card, and there's some question marks out there. Could we see Swerve be the champion? This is going to be fun on Sunday.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, it's funny. We talk about Elimination Chamber, which was so chalky, and you had the overwhelming favorites, and all of them won. You look at this card, and there's few matches where you say, oh, well, this guy's definitely going to win. Like, I feel like you can make a case either way. And then, of course, the All-Star Scramble, where the winner gets a world title match.
Here's where Tony Khan is making a mistake, and he's behind. You know,
where's my Meat Madness, damn it?
That's it, Gabe. This is supposed to be Meat Madness, but then you got a number of big guys that are on the injured list, and so this became a scramble match. But here's the
weird part about that, by the way, so it was announced Hobbs, Wardlow, and Lance Archer was Meat Madness.
Yeah, triple threat.
And then they said, oh, there's injuries, so we're going to do this instead. All three of those men are in this new match. But today on the media call, apparently Keith Lee and Miro were also supposed to be Meat Madness, and both of those are unavailable.
Because of injury.
Damn it.
But
damn it.
But the problem,
Meat Madness would have been awesome.
But the problem is you're months and months behind. That's the problem. We were all in Chicago for StarCast weekend. You recall this, right? That's not a fever dream. All three of us were together.
That's accurate, yeah.
Yeah, that's correct. Yes, in Chicago. Yes, we were all there.
We were all there, Gabe. My point is that Sunday for All In.
Out.
Whatever. In
Chicago.
In Chicago, all Chicago. Yes. At that show, I mean,
it's terrible, but I remember All Out in Chicago is because it's the Brawl Out. Like I honestly remember that's how I always remember Brawl. The difference between All In and All Out.
But All In, the first one was in Chicago. That doesn't help.
That's correct. Yes, I was also there, but Brawl Out happened in Chicago, so that's still in Chicago. All In's in Wembley.
I guess my point is that's where the meat chance started.
Right.
But that's in September. Wait a minute. Now you're coming around to this in March?
Right. And the solution to injuries, like, it's not this match. The All-Star Scramble, this is who we have announced so far. Jericho, Hobbs, Wardlow, Hook, Lance Archer, Brian Cage. And then you'll have two more between Magnus or Matt Sydal. One of those guys definitely going to get a world title shot. And then either Penta, Brian Keith, or Dante Martin. Someone's getting a world title match out of those group of men.
Like, okay, so here's the thing. If we were looking to add Miro and Keith Lee, like, Brian Cage is right there. Like, just add Brian, have it a 4. Like, Brian Cage is still meaty enough.
Or just
and then add
3 you have announced.
Then add Brody King. Well, just throw Brody King. You still have plenty of meaty men on the roster. We still could have done Meat Madness.
Give Gabe his meat.
That's my point. Meat.
What happened there? What's going on? What happened there? So here's the difference, guys, between AEW and WWE. Triple H will look at that and be like, sorry, guys, you're not in the card.
Yeah.
Like, but in AEW, everybody get on the card. Everybody get a payday out of Greensboro. Everybody. Nope, that's not. In WWE, more than half this card's cut. You want to be on the card? Be on like Raw or SmackDown, but we're not going to have 9 matches. Sorry.
So looking at this group, like, is this how Wardlow gets a world title shot and then gets thrown away and loses?
Yes. That's the favorite, right?
I imagine.
It has to be. Yeah. Has to be. They're not giving Lance Archer a title shot.
Nothing wrong with Lance Archer. Hey.
Look,
Yes.
Hey, preach into the choir here. Love Lance Archer. You know who doesn't love Lance Archer? AEW doesn't love Lance Archer.
I just don't want Jake the Snake Roberts heat on this show anymore. I don't want the smoke when he came on here before. I don't want that. I'm gonna be nice to Lance Archer, please.
So you don't want Samoa Joe versus Magnus for the AEW World Title in April?
I don't even know who that is.
Don't worry, I don't either. But if he beats Matt Sydal on Friday, he's in this match.
Why is Matt Sydal getting an opportunity to get an opportunity?
I don't know.
Was that CM Punk Matt Sydal we saw on a Friday? Was that? Do you recall that, guys? Like it was like the YouTube version of Rampage against SmackDown. It was head to head, and that was the match. I think it was CM Punk Matt Sydal, and it was the weirdest thing. Like Tony Khan thought, I'm going to put a YouTube show against SmackDown head to head. And Sydal and like Punk was the match. I'm like, what is this?
Confirmed. If you type it into Google, the first video that shows up, was CM Punk able to keep undefeated streak alive against Matt Sydal? You got to click and find out.
I guess we'll never know.
How about that?
What do we got at number 2, Brian?
Sticking with Revolution and, well, not quite young men, but Sting will have his final match that we saw him descend from the rafters last night. What is your favorite Sting memory?
So the thing with Sting for me is, so when in my formative years during the Monday Night Wars, I did not grow up with cable. Like I didn't have cable. So I did not watch a lot of WCW. A lot of the early WWE stuff that I watched was a friend of mine. Like I would watch it in batches because my friend would tape a bunch of Raws and then give me the VHS. And then I would watch all of those. And then when SmackDown came to UPN, like I was the happiest kid ever, right? Like, because now I've got regular television and I've got wrestling. Like every once in a while, I would get a taste of what the WCW was if I happened to be at a friend's house on Monday or a Thursday night for Thunder. So like I would every once in a while get that taste. So like growing up, like I was aware of Sting, but I didn't get to see a ton of Sting. So I think I really really did a deep dive into Sting when he first showed up in WWE. Because then they, did as they do with, when people show up, they kind of feature matches on the WWE network and they had the entire WCW library. So I was able to kind of dive in after. But like, while Sting was at the peak of his powers in WCW, I just was not as familiar as a kid with no cable and no access to WCW or Nitro.
Okay. So I go back with Sting going back to 1987. And cable did not come to Chicago until 1990. But on the syndicated television, we got the Universal Wrestling Federation out of Oklahoma, run by Bill Watts. And boy, you talk about, it felt like college basketball or college football in a wrestling ring because all of those matches came from Oklahoma and the Mid-South, Louisiana and all that. And the crowd was at a fever pitch. So I saw Sting and he was this bleach blonde guy. He was part of a group called Hot Stuff International. And that was what Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert, with Jack Victory, Hollywood John Tatum, Missy Hyatt, Rick Steiner, and Sting. First time I saw Sting was in a tag team with Rick Steiner. And they were two young guys, right? Young, hungry, aggressive guys. And so I watched Sting. And I'm like, okay, yeah, you know what? Big guy, blonde, great. But he comes to the NWA. And it was so different than anything else the NWA had. During that time, it was Ric Flair against Dusty Rhodes or Ric Flair against Barry Windham. Great matches, especially Flair and Windham. But Sting comes on the scene, and because wrestling was kind of, Dick Murdoch and Dick Slater and Terry Funk, it was kind of the same. Men, like real men, just regular tights, regular boots, and just wrestlers. Sting comes on and provides something completely vibrant, guys, like bleach blonde hair, and he's got muscles. He's 270 pounds. He's got these unique tights and didn't have the traditional boots. It wasn't like the boots you tie up. It was just like the slip-on boots, It was just like, who is this guy? And he became such a big baby face because he didn't look like the wrestler of the day. He didn't look like 1987. He looked like 1990. Think about this. In 1990, you had Sting on one channel and you had the Ultimate Warrior on the other. And funny that how both of those guys were tag team partners the Blade Runners when they first came into the business in Memphis. So when I saw Sting in his first match against Ric Flair, his first singles match in the NWA against Ric Flair, Clash of Champions 1, March of 1988. The Clash of Champions 1 was against WrestleMania. You got this show on TBS. I go to my friend Antoine's house because I didn't have cable, but he had the big-ass satellite dish in the backyard. I go to his house to see Clash of Champions 1, and I see Flair and Sting, 45 minutes, that goes to a draw. That's the match where Sting was made because Flair not necessarily carried him, but helped him along. Sting was still green, but he was strong and the fans were behind him. And he didn't look like all the other kind of wrestlers in the NWA. That match put Sting on the map, and that made Sting at some point become the heavyweight champion in first match against Flair, 1990, I think, or 1991, when he became the heavyweight champion of WCW. So that's my match, Flair against Sting, where it's in Greensboro, and Flair and Sting go 45 minutes to a draw on TBS, no commercials, and it was pretty awesome.
So that's the thing for me, like sort of the gauge point coming up the same era, like the 90s. It's weird to think about it, but like Sting in the Rafters is like how I remember Sting. And it's obviously hard to disconnect from like how terribly the ending went and how they sort of like wasted things and that Starrcade match and things like that. But the intrigue and the storytelling of him up there every single week and him not talking and him taking a lifeless DDP up with him to the rafters and that sort of stuff is like how I'm going to remember Sting. And the other thing I'll throw out there is this AEW run has been so fun. And I don't know if it's jaded because there's been a couple times where like I've been there in the presser and hearing him where he seems so appreciative of what's happening right now and being able to go out like this and not be buried by the WWE, logic and things like that. Like that's been pretty cool to see.
So that's a part of it, right? Like, because I was super excited when he came to WWE. Like when he showed up at the Survivor 100%. Series, like super excited. When they did the unveiling, when they were going to do the statue, and all of a sudden he's under there, like they did some cool things, and then he wrestled Triple H at WrestleMania, and it's like, oh,
right, like hey, WWE won.
And then Monday Night Wars have come to WrestleMania 15 years late. Cool,
terrible,
great, cool guys. So that just kind of fell flat. And then he gets injured with the buckle bomb when he wrestled Seth Rollins. And I think the reason why he's probably so appreciative of this is because, there was a while there you just didn't know. He went into the WWE thing. I think he probably wanted to wrestle once, maybe twice, and that be it anyway. But then he gets injured. It's like, oh, okay, now this is probably just not going to be an option for him. And so for him to come back and do what he's done, this run in AEW has been fantastic. They've used him in the perfect way on his way out. They've been able to protect him, and they've allowed him to also have some really cool moments in this run in AEW. They built up, Winter is Coming is one of the things that they do now. That was his debut. That was like the big Sting debut episode for AEW. I think it's of the criticisms that we levy towards AEW, Sting is definitely not one of them. They've used Sting, and the way they've done Sting is the absolute just perfect way for him to go out.
I will say, I believe it was Players Tribune, but Darby Allin wrote a piece about what it's been like to work alongside Sting and the whole like, hey, never meet your heroes, like throw that out the window, how cool that's been for him. And the other thing to be worried about is Sting, I believe today said, oh, people are going to be talking about that match on Sunday, and I'm going to do things that you couldn't expect. And we've already seen Sting sort of push that line for a 64-year-old.
Yeah,
so I'm a little worried about how he goes out on Sunday, but I think the Bucks would be a good opponent, and I think that'd be a good way to sort of showcase his final match.
I would say, guys, that when you think of WCW, and this is another topic we may get to, may never get to, but think about WCW. If you're doing a Mount Rushmore of WCW, not the NWA, WCW, the Mount Rushmore would have to be Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, because he's the one that turned heel when he didn't
Hollywood,
Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
Specifically Hollywood Hulk Hogan.
Booker T, because he was 5-time WCW champion. He was very consistent. I know we kind of are tainted by the Vince Russo years, all that nonsense, but Sting's on that list too for Mount Rushmore because Sting could have jumped to WWE during those Monday Night Wars, and he did not. He could, and Vince asked him. But the one thing about Sting as we get ready for Revolution, guys, is that everywhere he's been loyal. Whether it's Mid-South, the UWF, then the merging of that coming to the NWA to WCW, WCW to TNA, and we forget about those TNA years. He made AJ Styles. You can go on YouTube and see AJ Styles against Sting. Sting loses the match. Point is, though, is that he made a young AJ Styles because AJ Styles beat somebody. He beat Sting. So then from there, he goes from TNA. He goes away from wrestling for a while, and then he comes to the WWE. That was nonsense, as we just documented. It was all horrible. And then just coming to AEW. AEW did right by Sting, something I can't say the WWE did for The Undertaker toward the end.
Yeah, 100%. But that's the thing. I think Sting is in that boat with The Undertaker of like the character, and like he definitely had more reimagining. But like he told CBS Sports, where if Sting versus Taker was done right, like it's one of those matches we'd be talking about forever.
Oh no,
like,
that's
we would have ever gotten that.
That I mean, I guess in my lifetime, that's the biggest wrestling regret in my wrestling lifetime, that we never got Sting versus Undertaker. And I don't know if there's anything else that's particularly close.
Right. And I think that speaks to what Sting is. So we all talk about where Taker is, in terms of characters, there might not be one better. And the fact that you put Sting in that same boat and that's one of those matches, that speaks to the greatness of Sting.
Yeah, there's so many matches, guys, and we don't have that much time to go through it. But I was thinking about Flair Sting in Clash 1. I was thinking about Sting against Vader, Sting against Cactus Jack.
Yeah, I got Sting versus Cactus Jack. That's one when I did a deep dive, back in 15 or 16, whatever it was, like Sting versus Cactus Jack. And maybe that's because I'm also a Mick Foley stan. But Sting versus Cactus Jack was really good.
Just a lot of great matches, but just Sting just being a good human being in a really weird business like pro wrestling. I mean, zero scandal. He goes to TNA, right? He becomes Joker Sting, just out of nowhere, just becomes totally different. He's quiet in WCW, as you mentioned. He didn't speak for a year plus. He finally gets the opportunity to be champion. Eric Bischoff screws him, where it's supposed to be, all right, Nick Patrick, when you get down to count to 3, just make it a regular count. Hogan tells Nick Patrick, don't quick count him. 1, 2, 3. We all remember this, right? Sting, no tan. He's out there. He's been in the Raptors for a year. He finally gets the opportunity against Hogan, and then Sting loses. Completely screwed, but still stay with the business. He could have left, but stay with the business. But out of everything that he's gone through, he stayed loyal. Bad creative, mediocre creative, with TNA, with Bischoff and Hogan, he still stayed true.
Bleeping Hogan, man.
To his character. So, just a top thing in a great career.
Bleeping Hogan and Vince, just God bless America. Like, why are those two guys just constantly making wrong decisions?
Do we see a face paint change on Sunday? Is there any color in there?
I like to see bleach blonde Sting. Can we get that?
I don't know if the hair will work the same.
I don't
know.
Cut it.
Cut it.
Give me a bleach blonde Sting.
I mean, if he cuts it, I don't know if it's coming back.
Right. It's a risky move there.
I think Conrad Thompson asked him at Starrcade, could he do that? And Sting's like, I don't think I'm doing that. I'll put on the red, white, and blue jacket for you. Yeah. But I'm not going to do the hair anymore.
We got the rafters last night. I feel like we need some touch of nostalgia on Sunday.
The rafter thing was great. The rafter thing to close it out last night was great.
Okay, you want some nostalgia? Let's bring in Sting. Let's bring in Sid. Let's bring Sid Vicious back. Let's bring in RoboCop from '90.
There we go.
Let's do that. I mean, that's all part of this thing to say. A crow on the arm. A crow on the arm.
Shockmaster.
Shockmaster. He's around.
He is. I will throw out a sort of unrelated, but with Sting. Dark Side of the Ring tweeted out a clip of Haku, Ming, whatever you want to call him, seeing the Shockmaster debut for the first time ever. Haku knows how to laugh, and he laughs a lot watching that clip. I cannot recommend it enough. Go check that out on Twitter. X, yes.
All right.
Oh.
Yeah, there you
go. Haku, keep him laughing, please, before he kills you. Right to the throat. Throat.
What do we got at number 3 this week, Brian?
All right, in the WWE world, we are continuing on that path to WrestleMania. That's the next stop. What are you guys currently most looking forward to at WrestleMania?
I mean, this will probably change every week. I think if we ask this question every week, right now, I would say it's probably Rhea versus Becky. But if you'd asked me 2 weeks ago, it probably would have been Bailey versus EO. So again, I think it just kind of depends upon how they do telling some of these stories. But right now, I think it's Becky versus. I think I'm going Becky versus Rhea is the thing I'm looking forward to.
A lot can change in a month. Who's winning that match?
I think it's
Rhea
Rhea.
Ripley. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, at least that's who it should be.
Okay.
Just remember, WWE is about legacy championship runs, pal.
That's a good point. You have to, once you win a title, you have to hold it for 3 years. It's a 3-year minimum at this point.
Rhea Ripley will be champion through 2030.
Okay.
And so will Gunther.
Good.
Same thing, right? God almighty.
Well, no, so that's the other thing. Well, you guys can give yours, and then I can give my Gunther
Go ahead.
take.
What's your thoughts on Gunther?
Well, so it just, with all these people seemingly lining up for Gunther, like this is the WrestleMania I think he loses it, because they're setting up for what was probably about at this point a decade ago. But they were doing a thing where it was the Intercontinental ladder match. You know, that's what Bryan Danielson, when he came back, WrestleMania 31, he won that ladder match. They did it a few years in a row and kind of got away from it.
Ryder.
I think that's what they're setting up for. I think they're setting up for an Intercontinental ladder match, and that's how Gunther loses it, and that's how they're still able to protect him.
Guys, just between the three of us, hold your nose. Priest cashing in on Gunther.
It did feel like that, right? I thought of Gabe when that
swear to
happened.
God.
Like, oh,
I swear to God. No, I swear to God. I swear to God. If Hunter does that bullshit again, he cannot win Booker of the Year and any of these things. All right? That is money in the case. Like, no, that's money in the bank. You challenge for one of the world championships, damn it. Now you don't go for the Intercontinental. You don't go for the U.S. title. Hell, you don't go for the 24/7 title. All right? Let's not do any of this BS. I'm sick of it. I am sick of it.
Those seeds were planted on Monday. They're just spreading them there.
Please don't get hot. Please. We know that you slap teammates, so please don't. Please.
That was for the kids.
Please don't get hot, please. Don't get hot. You saw what we saw. First of all, just unusual, right? It is the Judgment Day, and then it's Gunther and his group, Imperium. I'm like, boy, now who's the babyface here, right?
Right, yeah.
And then like Priest, it have to be held back on Gunther. I'm like, you're cashing in for the IC title?
Well, what else is he supposed to do? One champ's not medically cleared, the other one's not there. He's running out of options.
I'm just telling, because we've been wondering, like, okay, how does Priest fit into all this WrestleMania picture? He doesn't fit the title picture at all. I mean, Sami Zayn fits more into it than Damian Priest, and Priest has the briefcase. I mean, like, there's a path for Zayn because he keeps trying to get in there. There's a path for Drew McIntyre, Seth Rollins, you know, like Cody Rhodes,
Chad Gable,
like Chad Gable. Everybody's got a path, right? But then Priest is like, the IC title looks pretty good. IC title, wow. That's what you've been holding this briefcase on?
You're seeing your money in the bank. Acts like it.
I mean,
One of you guys threw it out, I believe, last week. I'm still on board with the Rhea cash in. That one makes the most sense at this point.
That was me. You know what? Slop, you're right next to me. You know what? I'm cashed in next to you. You know, I'll beat you. How about that?
Yeah.
Holy smokes. Like, I mean,
that would be better than going after the IC title. That would be better than going after the IC title, because at least, God bless it. No, God, I hated every second of that on Monday. I hated it.
Gabe, they planted the seed. Because why else would you do that?
Yep.
All right, I'm praying for a drought then. I'm praying for a drought so that seed doesn't come to plant.
I'm just like, because you have a very hot wrestling temper, I'm just trying to tell you to just be careful. Like this, they plant that seed like that's going to happen. I was like, whoa. And by the way, nothing against the Intercontinental Championship. Gunther has been a fine champion. I'm saying that briefcase is not for that.
Right.
No. Can you imagine Cody going up in that? You know what? I'm not challenging. I'm letting The Rock take my spot. Instead, I'm using my opportunity from winning the Royal Rumble to challenge Logan Paul. What?
Logan Paul.
What? I don't. What? No.
No, that was last year as a U.S. title cash-in. This year's the IC title cash-in. It's unprecedented.
Like, it's just, yeah, I mean, it's a better golden ticket than what winning the Royal Rumble is. Like, it's a better golden ticket because you can just do it anytime, anywhere. Catch them off guard. Go get yourself a world championship.
If they do go in that direction, they're being disingenuous with what Money in the Bank is. It's a cash in for a world's title shot. Don't try to redefine it now, because now you're not going by the letter of the law for what's in that briefcase.
Yep.
No. We're gonna have to start like a university. We're gonna have to start classes. We're gonna have to start teaching what you do with the Money in the Bank briefcase. I will teach the class.
All of a sudden,
don't do what Damian Sandow did, and don't say, "Hey, I'm gonna wrestle John Cena ahead of time." Don't cash in for a secondary title.
I mean, all of a sudden.
I think that's it. That's the list.
I mean, all of a sudden, Damian Priest is in Orlando, and he goes to a referee, and Booker T says, "Oh, shook it. Oh, shook it."
Uh-huh.
He's challenging Dragunov for the NXT title. Like Priest and Dragunov. Wait a minute.
I think. Well, but again, I think that would be better because we've, at least on the women's side, Charlotte used her winning the Royal Rumble to cash in on the NXT champ. So at least there's precedent for that, I guess.
And then, you want to be on the CW as the NXT champion. It's an up-and-coming brand.
That would kill the Judgment Day deader than midnight right there. That would kill Judgment Day. I mean, one thing for Dom to win it.
Right.
Fine. Dom winning one of those titles in NXT. But like Priest is going through airports. He's traveling internationally with that thing. He's got to put that thing and go through customs with that thing.
And he has to carry 2 tag belts unnecessarily.
Oh, my God. Only to be the IC title holder? Oh, man.
I do feel bad for Gunther that he's sort of left out right now because, like, that has been such a highly pushed title, and there's stuff out of his control why he's not getting a marquee match. But I guess a ladder match could be fun with just a bunch of people thrown in.
So again, Tater says they advertise Money in the Bank as a championship opportunity. They don't specify world champ. Yeah, and they advertise the winner of the Royal Rumble as main eventing WrestleMania. So I guess you don't even have to pick a champion to do that, right?
That's a good point.
It's implied it's for the World Heavyweight Championship. The Vince phrase of championship opportunity, it's implied it's for the World's Championship. World's Championship.
That was okay. What are you guys looking forward to at WrestleMania? Let me take a let me kind of give me a second to cool down.
I agree with Becky and Rhea. If they're given time, I think that should steal the show. But then we talked about it earlier. Logan Paul and Orton should be really good. I imagine it's for the U.S. title. Like maybe Orton gets one more title run, but like that should be a damn good match with those two.
I mean, it's not booked, but that's what I expect to happen.
Yeah, I feel like that's where we're going.
Yeah, I think that should be a great match because I think both wrestlers are smooth.
So if they do that, though, where does that leave KO? Because it seemed like they were trending in the direction of a rematch at WrestleMania. And especially, the way, again, they released on social media then of him writing Kevin sucks, drawing the picture of Kevin. Like, it seemed like he was antagonizing Kevin Owens only to turn around and cost Randy Orton. So that kind of leaves Kevin Owens on the outside looking in.
That's a weird spot. I feel like we're going down the path of either we have some big names left out, like a Kevin Owens, or we get a lot of multi-men matches.
Yeah, he could host it. It's fine. I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's just, I mean, I can't take another KO has been intense and he's done well, but I don't see a dance partner.
Yeah.
No.
At this point, unless it's something between now and WrestleMania, and again, we got to wait for that. But at this point in time, I don't see a dance partner for Kevin Owens.
Which is unfortunate because he's been such, I mean, he's main evented night one of the last 2 WrestleManias.
Right.
Hey, look, if you're not going to do anything with Sami Zayn, like I know that he thinks there's a path, he's not going to be in the world title picture, then why'd you split him up to start with? Like Zayn, not to your point, bro, it's because I know you're a Zayn fan. He had his time in Montreal, great match against Roman Reigns, and just without the bloodline, just kind of just floating along, losing matches, winning a match here and there. Like 50-50 on Sami Zayn doesn't work. Make them a tag team again if you're not going to do anything with these two. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I feel like if he wins the IC title, I guess that's a moment. Like if he's the one that ends Gunther's run.
Sure.
And if that's one-on-one, that match will deliver. but it does feel like that'll be a bunch of people thrown in there at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of feels like they're lining up, and I think that again because it feels like they don't know what to do with Gunther, and they want to protect him, right? Because they want him to be this next monster guy to go after, whether it's the Universal title with Cody after WrestleMania, whether it's the World Heavyweight Championship, whatever. They want to protect him, and the way to do it is that multi-man match where he doesn't, it's a ladder match, so he doesn't even get pinned, he doesn't get submitted, any of that. It's just somebody else who climbs the ladder, and he happens to lose at that.
That's the other thing right now. Like, I'm trying not to get my hopes up because I've sort of accepted the last few years that WrestleMania is not for the fans like us. WrestleMania is for the casual fan. But if this is truly Hunter's first, like, this feels like it's going to be a really good wrestling show. Like, both women's title matches, if we get Orton and Paul, Rollins and Drew, like, it should be a really good wrestling night. I'm just trying not to get my hopes up too much at this point.
I saw your tweet on that and I chuckled. Yeah, because you tweeted that out and said, looks like this is shaping up to be a pretty good wrestling show. Yeah. What it's supposed to be, right? It's supposed to be.
Right, but it still is.
But has it? I mean,
well,
when's the last time WrestleMania was a really good wrestling show?
Gotta do some research on that one.
It's been a while.
Yeah, gotta do some research on that because and this is why Gabe loves the Royal Rumble,
right?
Or WrestleMania is because of what we just talked about, like actual spectacle. No, wrestling versus spectacle.
Right.
Yep.
And that's it. Like, we'll still probably get some sort of celebrity thing thrown in there, and like I don't even count Logan Paul in that department anymore.
But I was about to, at this point, like Logan Paul kind of like scratches Logan again. Anytime you get Logan Paul and Bad Bunny, you're able to like scratch that, this is the mainstream guy as well, but then they can also deliver in the ring. They're like the best of both worlds. Triple H's dream.
Well, I guess to that point, Dwayne counts to that. Like, maybe we don't get any just random celebrity thing. Like, I guess the biggest action star going is sort of that celebrity thing.
Yeah. Like, again, Dwayne, Logan Paul. Again, if you find a way to somehow get Bad Bunny involved, like you honestly cannot do better than those three in their respective arenas. Like they're about as big as you get for crossover.
McAfee will do something.
You know what? That's a real great cost savings. It really is, right? When Vince had to be able to buy stars to come in and going back to WrestleMania 1, hey, Liberace, hey, Billy Martin, hey, Rockettes, come in, right? You get a payday. Now it's like the stars are coming to them. Can we come to see WrestleMania? Yeah. And by the way, can you do something on camera for us? Yeah, no problem. It's WrestleMania. It doesn't cost anything. It's a great savings. You don't have to pay stars anymore because stars will be there anyway because it's WrestleMania. They just want a box seat someplace. That's all they want.
That is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
What do we got this week in news and notes, Brian?
All right, we'll start with some sad news. A couple deaths in the wrestling world. Yesterday, Michael Jones, better known to the wrestling fans as Virgil, passing away at 61, former $1 Million champ, NWO bodyguard, and a tag team champion with Rocky Johnson when he was Soul Train Jones. And earlier in the week, Ole Anderson passing away at 81. He was left out of the Hall of Fame induction, but an original member of the Four Horsemen.
Oh, me. So
you're the show historian.
Yes.
Yeah,
you're old. Give us a thought. Well, let's start with Virgil. I'm not going to go, but before Virgil came to WWE, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to do that because even that's murky for me. Like the stuff that Soul Train Jones did before he came to WWE, I have no idea. All I can say is that Virgil was named because it was a rib on Jones. Virgil, the real name of Dusty Rhodes, that was a rib on Jones. Say, hey, we're gonna call you Virgil because that's Dusty Rhodes' real name. Virgil goes to WCW, they call him Vincent. Why? Because that was a rib on Vince, because that's Vince's real name. So just brutal, right?
So witty.
Yeah.
Poor guy. Yeah. No. So clever.
He goes to WWE. Well, hey, let's call him, Dusty Rhodes' real name. Go to WCW, we call Vincent. Stupid, right?
Yeah.
His biggest highlight is that he got his comeuppance on the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. Is there a Ted DiBiase $1 Million Man character without Virgil? I mean, someone had to be his bodyguard, driver, assistant, his muscle. And I think that the two of them worked well together. And so later on in life, where he ultimately becomes a meme, Virgil, and does all the wrestling conventions, pretty cool because he got popularity from that. So, rest in peace, Virgil, a guy that was part of something we had never seen before. Ted DiBiase, who was just a good wrestler, comes in and pretty much is Vince McMahon.
Right.
Because that was Vince's gimmick. Like, hey, here's an idea, Ted. I'm going to give you money everywhere you go, and you're going to spend it, and people are going to know who you are. Give a $100 tip to this cab driver. Give a $500 tip to this restaurant, and people are going to have a buzz everywhere you go. That's $1 million man. That's $1 million man. Ultimately, that was Vince, and Ted was living through what Vince wanted, and Virgil was part of that. There you go.
The weird thing with Virgil, and maybe it's just remembering it different because like I was a little younger as it's coming up. He feels like one of those guys like should have been a Hall of Famer. Like the way they put in some of those like popular characters, like at Coco Beware, the Bushwhackers, things like that. He would feel like was on that level and was such a big part of that era.
He will now.
Yeah,
he will now. Ole Anderson.
And it's always a shame when they end up doing that posthumously because like there's no reason why you couldn't have done it.
They all think that, when you see these characters, you think they're going to last forever, but they actually have lives and health issues. Right. So you might want to take care of the people while they're alive, right? Ole Anderson, one of the greatest tag team wrestlers of all time. He and Gene Anderson made the Andersons. They were very popular in the Carolinas under Jim Crockett. Ole Anderson was very smart as far as his booking. He could work as a babyface or a heel, and obviously one of the original Four Horsemen. A complete asshole. That's why he was not part of the Hall of Fame.
Hall of Fame.
I mean, that's why they would put Barry Windham in instead of Ole. Ole was up in age and started losing his marbles a little bit. And also a raging racist. Back to you.
All right. There you go. Moving on in news and notes, some new WWE signings. Tuesday night at NXT, we saw the re-debut of Shawn Spears, who was formerly Ty Dillinger in NXT, but it appears he is Shawn Spears again. He left AEW back in December. And also Dave Meltzer reporting Tama Tonga is WWE bound, the son of Haku.
Super interesting that he's going to go by Shawn Spears and they're not going to make him go by Ty Dillinger, the perfect 10. And because he was such a popular act in NXT as that. But coming back as Shawn Spears, so clearly wanting to have a separation of that character. I found that interesting that he's going to be back in NXT, but as Shawn Spears.
Also with the chair, so I guess the whole chairman gimmick's still a thing.
I mean, I probably would have left that behind, but that's just me.
He should have stayed. He should have went back to Ty Dillinger because he was over as Ty Dillinger. I mean, it's a funny thing about WWE, especially in that time. A hand gesture, music like Glorious Bobby Roode. It was little things, right? Just kind of things like that. He should have been Ty Dillinger, but as Shawn Spears, not as appealing. Not as appealing. Yeah. I thought that when I first saw that, I thought he'd be a trainer.
Well, maybe that's why you did the NXT thing. Like, hey, you can still work, but also, you're essentially a trainer.
That's what I thought. And so yeah, good for him that he's back on the scene. With AEW, it worked to an extent, but he could never get through that glass ceiling. Just couldn't break through. Just another guy.
Elsewhere in WWE, 3 straight weeks of The Rock on SmackDown. Tomorrow night, March 1st in Glendale, Arizona. Next week in Dallas, Texas. And then March 15th in Memphis, Tennessee. 3 straight.
Wait, what about March 22nd in Milwaukee?
3 straight. March 15th on Memphis, Tennessee, the third one.
Oh, okay. All right, cool. So they're just going to wave the white flag up against the NCAA tournament. Okay, that's cool. Cool. All right, sweet. No, I think that's great to get him to commit to those 3 straight weeks. Again, you're going to be interested to see what he does. What does he do to follow up on the previous promo? What does he do to respond to Cody Rhodes' challenge that was issued in Perth? Like, there are plenty of things for The Rock to do and answer, and I'm sure he's going to do something that causes some sort of reaction on Monday, and you have this back and forth, and I think Cody's going to be showing up to some of these SmackDowns as well, so plenty of questions to be answered with the Bloodline before we get to WrestleMania.
Good to see The Rock out there. Of course, Cody challenges The Rock for any place, any time. Will The Rock wrestle in any one of those shows before WrestleMania?
Absolutely not.
Yeah, I think that's going to be night 1 at WrestleMania with The Rock and Cody Rhodes. But it's going to be good to see The Rock out there, though, because you're on the road to WrestleMania. You just want more people to tune into Peacock because it's not about tickets. It's not about that. It's just trying to just keep it going so people could be there to watch both nights. And it guarantees it, by the way, that it's not like, oh, Rock's going to be a night 2. I can pass a night 1. Watch both because you never know.
Yep. And finally, if you enjoyed seeing CMLL wrestlers than AEW, I've got some bad news. According to reports, 19 different CMLL wrestlers and a referee are said to have their work visas canceled by the U.S. government this week. Obtaining new visas could take months or up to a year.
So I'm so glad that Atlantis Jr. got his opportunity before he set him back down below the border. Atlantis Jr. got his opportunity.
He did. Congrats, Jericho.
I'll give AEW credit though, Gabe, Brian. At least they told the story before Jericho and Atlantis. Sure. Usually it's just a cold match. Here's Atlantis Jr. Who the hell is that?
Right.
At least they told a good story, right? About Chris Jericho as a young man in CMLL. I'm like, that's what we've been looking for. Now it makes sense. Okay, we still don't need the match, but at least there's a story, right? At least there's a story.
I didn't really enjoy that match, but their story.
Yeah.
What did you have? Speaking of matches, what did you boys have as your matches of the week?
The Women's Elimination Chamber. It was the best match at Elimination Chamber, surprisingly.
I thought the men's was better than the women's. And maybe it's just because I couldn't get over the start of Becky and Naomi. But I just maybe I couldn't get over that start. But I thought that kind of held it back.
The Women's Elimination Chamber, for my money, was the best match on the card, followed by Rhea Ripley and Nia Jax. And by the way, this is nothing against the men, but I think that when we were making our predictions, I had no idea that Bobby Lashley would take the first pinfall. Holy smokes. What happened to Bobby Lashley? Like, oh, gone.
Yeah.
So that, and we can go around the horn, guys, but I mean, that's one match. And we saw a lot of other really good matches as well on Raw and also on AEW Dynamite.
Yeah, I had a bunch this week also. So I'll go outside the normal shows. New Japan World, I did cancel, so we got that. Nick Nemeth, David Finlay. Main event, Nemeth now at New Japan champion. And it's funny because if you listen to him on the Jericho podcast, he was a little worried about working the New Japan style. And he's like, let's see if I've got it. Like, haven't really worked outside the WWE bubble. The man still got it. The man can work, formerly Dolph Ziggler. And we're going to see him a lot more on indie shows these next few months. That match delivered.
I got a little travel this weekend, and bro, it's hit me up, Gabe, and said, you got to watch this match. So I'll be watching that on the flight this weekend. That is for sure.
I was like, who pays for New Japan World? They're like, Jay Hood. Here you go.
Jay Hood hasn't figured out how to cancel it either.
Nope. Nope.
Powerhouse versus Sammy, the opener for Collision last Saturday night. That was wholly unnecessary for a random Saturday night. I'm thankful it happened. Don't know why it happened, but very thankful it happened. And hey, look at Powerhouse won a match.
That might have been the best match in the history of the Ozarks. They're in Springfield, Missouri, and I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here with this match? And by the way, and then you want to capture an audience, that's how you do it. I mean, again, in the AEW, in the history of the business, no one has the best cold matches than AEW, boy. No rivalry, not really. Just, you know what? Tables, ladders, chairs.
I mean, they tried to explain it of like, oh, the Don Callis family is trying to eliminate Jericho and Sammy Guevara.
Right.
But it's also like a throwaway line by Shivani halfway through the match.
Remember, he was sort of in the group, then they did the tag thing, they did this, and then that. You know, feud's only been going for about 7 years.
FTR and Eddie Kingston against Blackpool Combat Club. Fantastic. That's how you open a show, boy.
Yep.
That's how you open Dynamite. That was great in Huntsville.
How about this one, SmackDown? Street Profits and AOP.
On SmackDown, yes.
Oh.
Like, Street Profits have sort of declined the last year or so. AOP, we know the potential's there. But I feel like with everyone gone, it was a tape show. It's like, all right, you four, just go do something. And that's what they did.
I mean, they had to do something. Otherwise, SmackDown was like a largely skippable show because you're running it. And then like less than 12 hours later, you've got the premium live event starting.
It was about
So,
an hour 45 of
shocking that
video
they decided to
packages,
do-
and then you had that match in there also.
I put Sky versus Statlander last night. The ending was, you ended up having a little bit of a different ending, but I thought the two of them in the ring, like it was really good action. I thought it was my favorite women's match. Of the week.
Surprise finish too.
Yeah. And also, we talk about improvement. Like Sky Blue, like has improved. Like there used to be those little botches here and there. Like she's gotten so much smoother in the ring.
Yeah, someone's got to represent Chicago. Let it be Sky Blue, and a great guest on GKW, by the way.
That's right. Check out the page.
Imperium against the New Day in a street fight. You may be tired of this. I'm not.
No, that was fantastic.
Back in the day, by the way, this would have been a DVD set, right? They've been wrestling like 10 times. This has to culminate to a cage match. I'm going to tweet Triple H. I'm like, okay, we're going to end this with a cage match. Not the one that you got to climb out of to win. No, I need them to beat the hell out of each other, and I want blood to end this finally, right? I mean, I love great tag team wrestling, but that street fight is put New Day away from the bootios, away from the comedy. Those guys are getting after it. They got their working shoes on.
How about Kofi show? Speaking of working shoes, Kofi showed up in jeans.
Yeah.
Man was wrestling in jeans. He was going to work.
That's what you got to do.
And it's funny, and this is why this is great storytelling. Imperium doesn't understand. They're still in wrestling gear. Like, where's your T-shirt? Where's your jeans? Like, no, the ring is sacred. The ring is sacred. Like, you're going to get your ass whooped. You better put on some jeans. It's like,
my favorite thing was Kofi putting the knee pads over the jeans too. Like that. I don't know why. I really enjoyed that.
Old school there.
Yeah.
I am curious about the ending
really
though, because that feels like a Mania pre-show also. Like there's no room for those four guys right now.
Put the cage up. Let's go.
Pre-show? Put the cage up pre-show as everyone's still trickling in?
Just bring it.
Yeah, hey man, get there early. You best get your ass there early.
As people are trickling in, here comes the cage lowered from the boom, 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 boom. My God, it's a steel cage! Steel cage! Like, yep, damn right, because we're going to end this right now. Blood. It's Philadelphia. You better see some blood, man. It's Philly.
That is fair. My last one, also tag team wrestling, Judgment Day versus Tyler Bate and Butch Pete Dunne from Saturday.
I'll throw out Sammy versus Shin from Monday Night Raw as well. Like those two just really work well together. I thought they did a really good job of, again, a couple of false finishes, Sammy getting the foot on the rope, beating a couple Kinshasas, but still ended up winning at the end.
Shin also forgotten at Mania,
really
right?
That. Oh, Shin's been forgotten at Mania since he won the Rumble, man.
Shinsuke Jabamura.
Which is really a shame. So they're just going to keep jobbing him out, right? Because they were trying to show Okada that they could still showcase a Japanese wrestler. But now that Okada is going to end up over in AEW, they're just like, oh, okay, we can just go back to jobbing out Shin now, right?
Yep.
That's what happened. Yep.
Some reports, by the way, Okada next week on Dynamite. So you might get him next week, Mercedes Moné the following week on Dynamite. And then Will Ospreay wrestles this weekend on pay-per-view.
Will Ospreay, one of the greatest wrestlers in the world. Here you go, Huntsville. Huntsville.
And Delta lost the man's bags, bruv.
Don't worry, he got him back. He got him back.
The babyface promo. I love that. People are into it. I'm just like,
oh, I mean, I guess technically he's a heel right now because he's in the Callis family. That ain't happening long. He is breaking free of that on Sunday. I will predict that right now. He is no longer going to be a member of the family after Sunday.
And I will predict that matches of the week next week, we will mention Will Ospreay's name.
Yes, because somebody got to wrestle on Rampage.
Yeah, I mean, when we do it next week, it's going to be other than Takeshita and Ospreay. What were your matches of the week? Don't forget, if you listen to this via podcast, if you just kind of checking us out for the first time, comment, subscribe, YouTube page. You can check out the video feed we put up every week with this as well. YouTube.com/@GoodKarmaWrestling. So, give us a comment. Subscribe as well over on YouTube. We're going to be reacting to Revolution. We're going to be reacting to the road to WrestleMania. So make sure you check us out next week right here